The silver hull of the Harmony's voice caught the light of the alien sun as it moved slowly toward the Zephyrian homeworld. Captain Kim Soo sat in his command chair, watching the strange planet grow larger on the main screen. His hands gripped the armrest tightly, though he tried to look calm. This was the most important day in human history. "Status report," Kim said quietly. "All systems normal, Captain," replied his second officer. "Zephyrians are guiding us to their orbital station." Ambassador Parkman stood behind the captain's chair, reading from her tablet one last time. She had spent months learning about Zephyrian culture, but there was still so much they didn't know. Her translator device made soft beeping sounds as it updated its language files. "Captain, incoming message from the Zephyrians," called out communications. Officer Lee Jin. He was young and nervous. His first deep space mission. The main screen flickered and showed the face of a Zephyrian. The alien looked like it was made of living crystal, with faceted features that sparkled in the light. Its voice came through the speakers in perfect English, though there was something cold about the tone. "Welcome, humans. We're pleased to meet you at last. Please follow the guidance signals to our reception facility." Captain Kim nodded. "Send our thanks and confirm we're following their route." The next few hours passed in a blur of activity. The Harmony's voice docked at a massive crystal station that hung in space like a jewel. The Zephyrians welcomed them with what seemed like genuine warmth. They gave the human delegation a tour of their beautiful cities, showed them incredible machines, and shared meals that tasted like nothing humans had ever experienced. Dr. Choi Hannah, the team's scientist, was amazed by everything she saw. The Zephyrians had technology that could grow buildings like plants and machines that seemed to think for themselves. She spent hours talking with their researchers, taking notes on everything. Chief Engineer Nam Tae worked with Zephyrian technicians to set up communication systems. They were friendly and helpful, showing him how their technology worked. But Nam Tae noticed something strange. The Zephyrians always had guards nearby watching everything the humans did. The cultural exchanges went well at first. The Zephyrians seemed interested in human art, music, and history. They asked many questions about Earth, about human society, and about how humans lived. Ambassador Park was pleased with how smoothly things were going, but Captain Kim began to feel uneasy. Something was wrong, though he couldn't put his finger on what it was. The Zephyrian military ships that escorted them everywhere stayed just far enough away to seem polite, but they were always there. When the humans moved, the ships moved. When they stopped, the ships stopped. During one cultural meeting, Ambassador Park tried to discuss defense agreements between their species. The Zephyrians listened politely, but Kim noticed their body language. They seemed amused, like adults listening to children talk about serious topics they didn't understand. The questions bothered him too. Zephyrians asked about Earth's population, about human military strength, about defensive systems. They wanted to know which cities were most important, how humans organized their fleets, and what weapons they had. When Park asked similar questions about Zephyrian society, the aliens changed the subject. "They're studying us," Kim told Park. "Privately one evening, not learning about us, studying us." Park frowned. "You might be reading too much into it. You're just curious about a new species." But Kim's unease grew stronger each day. The Zephyrians were always polite, always helpful. But there was something in their eyes that made him uncomfortable. They looked at humans the way humans might look at interesting animals at a zoo. The final ceremony took place in the Zephyrian capital's Great Hall. The building was made entirely of crystal, and it sparkled like a diamond in the sunlight. Thousands of Zephyrians filled the seats, all watching as Ambassador Park gave her speech. "We come in peace," Park said, her voice carrying clearly through the hall. "We hope to build a friendship between our peoples that will last for generations. But together, we can explore the galaxy and share knowledge that will benefit both our species." The Zephyrian leader, a tall figure with features that seemed to shift like flowing water, stood to respond. His voice was beautiful, musical, but his words sent chills down Kim's spine. "We are pleased to meet humanity," the leader said. "It is important to understand the nature of lesser species and to establish appropriate relationships between civilizations. We look forward to guiding you to your proper place in the galaxy. The translator rendered the words politely, but Kim caught the original meaning. The Zephyrians didn't see humans as equals. They saw them as something to be managed, controlled. Placed in their proper position, as the ceremony ended, the Zephyrian leader presented Ambassador Park with a gift. It was a beautiful crystal sculpture, perfectly crafted and shimmering with inner light. The image showed a tall, elegant creature standing over smaller figures that lay at its feet. Symbol of natural order, the leader explained with what might have been a smile. Park accepted the gift graciously, but Kim saw her face pale as she understood the meaning. The sculpture wasn't celebrating friendship between equals. It was showing the relationship the Zephyrians expected between their species and humanity. As the Harmony's voice departed for Earth, Kim stared at the crystal sculpture in the ship's display case. The translation software couldn't capture the true meaning of the Zephyrian words, but the sculpture spoke clearly enough. Humanity had made first contact, but they weren't meeting friends. They were meeting something far more dangerous than they had imagined. 6. Months had passed since the humans first met the Zephyrians, and things were going very wrong. On the frontier world of New Geneva, Colonial Administrator Yu Sung sat in his office, looking at reports that made his stomach turn. The peaceful contact everyone had hoped for was turning into something much darker. "Sir, we have another sighting," said his assistant, rushing into the room with a tablet. 3 more Zephyrian ships were seen scanning the northern settlements. Last night, Yu Sung rubbed his tired eyes. Scans had been happening for weeks now, always at night, always without permission. The Zephyrian ships would appear, point their strange energy beams at human buildings, then disappear before anyone could respond. Security Chief Kang Yoon entered the office, her face serious. She was a tough woman who had served in the Colonial Defense Forces for 20 years, and Yu Sung had never seen her look worried before. "We need to talk," she said, closing the door behind her. "I've been studying the scan patterns. They're not just curious about us anymore. They're mapping everything." She activated the holographic display in the center of the room. A 3-dimensional map of New Geneva appeared, covered in red dots that marked where the Zephyrian scans had been detected. "Look at this." Kang Yoon pointed to the pattern. "They've scanned every defense installation, every communication tower, every major population center. This isn't scientific research. This is military reconnaissance." Yu Sung felt a chill run down his spine. "Are you saying they're planning to attack us?" "I'm saying they're getting ready for something, and it's not a friendly visit." Meanwhile, back on Earth, Ambassador Park Min was having her own problems. She sat across from Zephyrian diplomat Veltar in the same conference room where they had celebrated their first successful communications. But now the atmosphere was completely different. "Veltar, we need to discuss the unauthorized scans of our colonies," Park said, trying to keep her voice calm and diplomatic. "Our people are concerned about these activities." The Zephyrian's crystalline features seemed to shift, and Park thought she detected something like amusement in his expression. When he spoke, his voice carried a tone she had never heard before. "Your concerns are noted, Ambassador Park. However, elder siblings must naturally check on the progress of younger siblings. This is the natural order of things." Park felt her heart sink. The translator was working perfectly, but the meaning behind the words was clear. Zephyrians didn't see humans as equals. They saw them as children to be watched and controlled. "We are not children, Veltar. We are an independent species with our own rights and territories." Veltar's response was even more disturbing. "Independence is a concept that must be earned through wisdom and strength. Younger species often believe they are ready for responsibilities they cannot handle." The situation got worse when the Zephyrians began making demands about human territories. They claimed that several star systems where humans had built colonies actually belonged to them. They presented ancient documents written in their complex script, insisting these proved their historical claims. Director Oh Kyung of the Colonial Administration tried to find a peaceful solution. She offered to share mining rights in the disputed systems, to build joint research stations, to work together on projects that would benefit both species. But every offer she made only seemed to encourage the Zephyrians to ask for more. "We appreciate your willingness to cooperate," Veltar told her during one meeting. "However, the younger species must understand that sharing implies equality, which is not possible given the natural hierarchy of intelligence." O'Kuhn left that meeting feeling sick. The Zephyrians weren't interested in cooperation. They wanted submission. The crisis reached its peak when High Counselor Zethmar, the leader of the Zephyrian government, sent a message directly to Earth. The transmission was broadcast simultaneously to every human world, ensuring that everyone would hear it at the same time. Zethmar's image appeared on screens across human space. His crystalline form seemed to glow with inner light, but his words were like ice. "Humans of Earth and the colonies," he began, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. "It has come to our attention that there are misunderstandings about the proper relationship between our species. To correct these misunderstandings, we require that all human colonies in the following star systems be evacuated within 38 days. The list that followed included some of humanity's most important settlements, including New Geneva and 3 other major colonies. Millions of people would have to abandon their homes. This is not a negotiation," Zethmar continued. "This is a correction of an error. If these territories are not evacuated within the specified time, we will be forced to take corrective measures to restore proper order." The message ended abruptly, leaving humanity in shock. President Ong Ji called an emergency meeting of the United Earth Council. Representatives from every human world gathered in the Great Assembly Hall, their faces grim with worry. The debates that followed were heated and desperate. "We can't just give up our colonies," shouted the representative from New Geneva. "Millions of people live there. It's their home." "But what choice do we have?" asked another delegate. "Their technology is more advanced than ours. If they decide to attack, can we really stop them?" General Lim Dong, the head of Earth's military forces, stood up slowly. His weathered face showed the weight of his years of service. "They're testing us," he said quietly, but his voice carried clearly through the chamber. "Every peaceful gesture we've made, every compromise we've offered, they've seen as weakness. They never intended to treat us as equals." Ambassador Park felt the truth of his words hit her like a physical blow. All her careful diplomacy, all her hopes for peaceful coexistence, had been interpreted as signs that humans were weak and could be pushed around. As the 30-day deadline approached, Park made one final attempt to reach out to the Zephyrians. She sent a message asking for one last meeting, one more chance to find a peaceful solution. The response came quickly and left no room for doubt. Lesser species must accept their place in the natural order. Resistance will be corrected. The message was clear. Humanity had a choice: submit or fight. The attack came at dawn on the 31st day. Just as Colonial Administrator Yu Song was drinking his morning coffee and watching the sunrise over New Geneva, the first sign of trouble was a flash of light in the sky, followed by an explosion that shook the entire building. "Sir, we have incoming ships," his communications officer called out. But his voice was cut off by another explosion much closer. This time, Yu Sung ran to the window and saw something that made his blood freeze. Sleek alien ships were dropping out of the sky, their weapons glowing with deadly energy. The plasma beams cut through the colony's buildings like they were made of paper, turning homes and offices into burning wreckage. "Get everyone to the emergency shelters," Yu Sung shouted into his communicator. "This is not a drill. We're under attack." He tried to coordinate the evacuation from his office, but the Zephyrian weapons were too powerful. The defense systems that were supposed to protect the colony lasted only minutes before being destroyed. Yu Sung stayed at his post, helping people escape, even as the building burned around him. His last transmission was heard across the colony. "Keep moving toward the shelters. Don't stop. Don't look back. We'll hold them as long as we can." The building collapsed 10 minutes later, with Yu Sung still inside. At the same time, hundreds of light years away, Director Bei Yun was working the night shift on Harmony Station when alarms began blaring throughout the facility. He looked up at the main screen and saw something impossible: massive Zephyrian battleships appearing out of nowhere, their hulls gleaming with menace. "All hands to battle stations," she announced calmly, even though her heart was racing. Prepare for incoming attack. The station's automated defense systems activated immediately, firing everything they had at the approaching ships. The weapons that had been designed to protect against pirates and raiders seemed pathetically weak against the alien technology. The Zephyrian ships absorbed the attacks without slowing down. "Director, our shields are failing," reported her chief engineer, his voice tight with fear. "Keep firing," Bayun ordered. "Make them work for it." The station shook as the first Zephyrian plasma beam hit the outer hull. Then another. The lights flickered and went out, replaced by the red glow of emergency power. Bayun knew they had only minutes left. She opened a channel to Earth, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. "This is Harmony Station. We're under attack by Zephyrian forces. Our defenses have failed. Tell Earth we held the line as long as we could." The transmission cut off as the station's power core was destroyed. Bayun and everyone aboard died instantly. On the mining world of Prosperity, Supervisor Kaobin had built something he was proud of. The small community had grown from a handful of miners to a thriving town with schools, shops, and families. He had watched children take their first steps on the colony's main street and celebrated as young couples got married in the community center. All of that was destroyed in less than an hour. K.O.
No.
Ben was in his office when the first explosions shook the town. He looked out the window and saw Zephyrian ships methodically destroying everything in sight. They weren't just attacking military targets. They were destroying homes, schools, hospitals, everything that humans had built. "Why are they doing this?" asked his assistant, a young woman named Lee who had been born on Prosperity. "We evacuated like they wanted. Why are they still attacking?" Coben had no answer. He watched in horror as entire residential blocks were reduced to ash by the alien weapons. The Zephyrians weren't fighting a war. They were exterminating what they saw as pests. The few survivors who made it to the emergency shelters described the attackers' cold efficiency. The Zephyrians moved through the colony like they were following a checklist, destroying everything systematically. There was no anger, no emotion. They were simply clearing obstacles from their path. Back on Mars, Admiral Song-Woo stood in the command center of the Earth Defense Fleet. Watching the holographic displays with growing horror, 3 human colonies were going dark one by one. The casualty reports were beyond anything he had imagined. "New Geneva is gone," reported his intelligence officer. "No response from any communication systems. Harmony Station has been destroyed." Came another report. "Complete loss of contact. Prosperity is under attack. Heavy casualties reported." Song-Woo watched the death toll climb higher and higher. In just 2 hours, the Zephyrians had wiped out 3 major human settlements. Millions of people were dead. This was only the beginning. Then came the broadcast that changed everything. "Hi," Counselor Zethmar's image appeared on screens across human space. His crystalline features seemed to glow with satisfaction as he delivered his message. "The correction of lesser species requires firmness," he announced, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. "Humanity will now accept its proper place as vassals of the Zephyrian Empire. Resistance will result in the complete elimination of your species." The terms he offered were not negotiation, and they were surrender. Earth would provide raw materials and labor. Human military forces would be disbanded. All human technology would be controlled by Zephyrian overseers. Humanity would become slaves in their own worlds, to demonstrate their power. Zethmar showed live footage of New Geneva's largest city being systematically destroyed. The cameras showed families running through the streets as buildings exploded. Around them, the message was clear. This would happen to every human world if they refused to surrender. President Anji watched the broadcast from the emergency bunker deep beneath. Seoul? Her advisors sat around her in stunned silence, waiting for her decision. The weight of humanity's future rested on her next words. She stood up slowly, her face pale but determined. When she spoke, her voice was quiet but filled with steel. "They mistake our desire for peace as weakness," she said. "They will learn otherwise." Within hours, every human world was mobilizing for total war. The Zephyrians had awakened something in humanity that they did not understand, that expected submission. Instead, they would face the fury of an entire species fighting for its survival. The attack on the colonies changed everything. Instead of breaking humanity's spirit, it awakened something that had been sleeping deep inside every human heart. President Anji's declaration of war spread across human space like wildfire, and the response was immediate and overwhelming. Admiral Song-woo had never seen anything like it. Within days of the attacks, volunteers were flooding into recruitment centers on every human world. Farmers left their fields, teachers abandoned their classrooms, and factory workers walked away from their jobs. All of them had one thing in common: they wanted to fight back. "Sir, we have more volunteers than we can handle," reported his aide, looking overwhelmed by the flood of applications. "The training facilities are completely full." Song-woo nodded grimly. The hastily assembled fleet of Retribution was growing. Bigger every day, but they still faced a terrible problem. Human weapons were no match for Zephyrian technology. They needed to level the playing field, and fast. On Luna Base, Dr. Shinhai worked 18-hour days in a laboratory filled with pieces of destroyed Zephyrian ships. The wreckage had been gathered from the attack sites, and every fragment was precious. She and her team of engineers studied every bolt, every wire, every piece of alien metal they could find. "Look at this," she said to her assistant, pointing to a section of Zephyrian hull. "See how the energy flows through these channels? Incredibly efficient, but it's also completely rigid. They built their ships to follow exact patterns." Her assistant frowned. "What does that mean for us?" "It means they're predictable," Shinhai replied with the first smile she'd worn in weeks. "Their shields are powerful, but they're designed to stop energy weapons. If we hit them with enough kinetic force, enough solid projectiles, we can overload their systems." The first test of this theory came at Kepler Station. Commander Park Jun had been left in charge of the mining facility when the Zephyrians came to occupy it. Instead of surrendering, he decided to make them pay for every meter of ground they took. "We're not soldiers," he told his small team of miners and technicians, "but we know this station better than anyone. I'm going to turn it into a trap." Park Jun's people used mining explosives and industrial equipment to create deadly surprises. Throughout the station, when the Zephyrians entered, expecting easy victory, they found corridors that exploded without warning and machinery that had been turned into weapons. The aliens were used to fighting enemies, who followed military rules. They expected neat battle lines and proper tactics. Instead, they faced humans who hid in ventilation shafts and used welding torches as weapons. The confusion in their ranks was visible as their careful formations fell apart. "They don't know how to fight dirty," Park Jun reported to headquarters. "We do." The real breakthrough came when Captain Hong Nara made a decision that shocked everyone, including herself. She was leading a squadron of fighters against a massive Zephyrian dreadnought. She realized they couldn't win with conventional attacks. "All ships, this is Captain Hong," she transmitted to her squadron. "We're going to ram that thing. Follow my lead." Her fighters, modified with extra armor and packed with explosives, dove straight at the alien warship. The Zephyrians tried to stop them, but they weren't prepared for pilots who didn't care about surviving the battle. Hong Nara's final transmission was heard across human space. They wanted to see human weakness. Instead, they'll witness human strength. The explosion when her ship hit the dreadnought was visible from 3 star systems away. The massive alien vessel broke apart, its wreckage scattered across space. More importantly, it proved that Zephyrian ships could be destroyed. Engineer Kim Dae was working on an even more ambitious project. He had managed to salvage intact Zephyrian power cores from the wreckage and was trying to figure out how to use them in human weapons. The alien technology was far more advanced than anything humans had built, but Kim Dae was stubborn. "If they can build it, we can copy it," he told his team. "We just need to understand how it works." After months of trial and error, he finally succeeded. The hybrid weapons that combined human engineering with Zephyrian power cores gave human ships the firepower to fight on equal terms. For the first time since the war began, human vessels could match alien technology. Colonel Yubin led the first major victory using the new weapons. His mission was to recapture Harmony Station, which the Zephyrians had been using as a forward base. Instead of attacking from outside, he used the station's own defensive systems against the occupying force. They're used to being the hunters, he told his troops before the assault. Today, they become the hunted. The battle was fierce and bloody, but Yubin's forces fought with desperate courage. They knew that every victory, no matter how small, sent a message to their enemies: humanity would not go quietly into extinction. As the war continued, the Zephyrians began to realize they had made a terrible mistake. They had expected quick surrender from a weak species. Instead, they found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to get stronger with every defeat. Their casualty reports made disturbing reading. For the first time in their military history, they were taking losses without gaining clear strategic advantages. The lesser species they had sought to dominate was proving far more dangerous than their calculations had suggested. Human tactics confused and frustrated the alien commanders. Where they expected fear, they found fury. Where they anticipated surrender, they met defiance. The humans fought with a desperation and creativity that the Zephyrians had never encountered before. The war was far from over. But something fundamental had changed. Humanity had learned to fight back, and they were getting better at it every day. The Zephyrians were beginning to understand that they had awakened something in humanity that they might not be able to control. The space around Proxima looked like a graveyard of stars. Admiral Song Wu stood on his command bridge, watching. The enemy fleet approached through the darkness. Over 1,000 Zephyrian ships moved toward his small force of 300 human vessels. The alien ships gleamed silver in the starlight, their weapons already charging with deadly energy. Song Wu had fought these aliens for months now. He knew their tactics, their strengths, and most importantly, their weaknesses. The Zephyrians were skilled warriors, but they fought like machines. They followed patterns and expected their enemies to do the same. Today, Song Wu would give them something they had never seen before. All ships, prepare for the final battle. Song Wu spoke into his communicator. His voice reached every human ship in the fleet. Today we show them what humanity really means. The battle began exactly as Song Wu expected. The Zephyrian ships fired their plasma weapons in perfect formation. Bright beams of energy cut through space, striking the outer human ships. Explosions lit up the darkness as several human vessels were destroyed in the first attack. But the human ships did not retreat. Instead, they began a strange dance through space. Half of the human fleet suddenly broke away from the main group and flew directly toward the largest Zephyrian ship. The aliens watched in confusion as the human vessels seemed to ignore their own safety. Captain Li Hua commanded the lead ship in this dangerous mission. Her vessel carried special weapons that Dr. Shinhai had created just for this moment. These weapons were untested and dangerous, but they were humanity's only hope. For our families, Li Hua whispered as her ship flew through the enemy fire. Plasma beams missed her by inches, but she kept flying forward. Behind her, other human ships followed. Even as many were shot down by the aliens. The Zephyrian command ship was massive, protected by powerful shields. But Li Hu's ship was small and fast. She guided it through a gap in the shields and crashed directly into the alien vessel. The explosion was enormous, lighting up space like a new sun. Both ships were destroyed, but something important happened. The command ship controlled all the other Zephyrian vessels. Without it, the alien fleet became confused and disorganized. Their perfect formation began to fall apart. Captain Yunte saw his chance. "All remaining ships, attack now," he shouted. The surviving human vessels charged forward with desperate courage. They had lost many friends already, but they would not let those deaths be meaningless. The humans fought differently than any enemy the Zephyrians had faced before. When their weapons failed, they used their ships as weapons. Human captains crashed their vessels into alien ships, sacrificing themselves to save others. The aliens had never seen such tactics before. The Zephyrians were better fighters and had better technology, but they became frightened. These humans fought like they had nothing to lose. They chose death over surrender. This confused the alien commanders. As more Zephyrian ships were destroyed or damaged, their formation completely broke down. The aliens began to retreat, but the humans followed them. Song Wu knew this was their only chance to end the war. Finally, the remaining Zephyrian ships stopped fighting. Their commanders sent a message asking for peace talks. They had learned something important about humanity that day. These small, weak creatures had something the aliens did not understand. They would never give up. The war ended with negotiations. Instead of more fighting, Zephyrians agreed to leave human space and never return. They had realized that defeating humanity would cost them too much. Even if they won, the humans would never stop fighting. News of the victory spread quickly. Through the galaxy, their alien races who had ignored humanity before now looked at them with respect. The species that everyone had thought was weak had proven they were strong in ways that mattered. Captain Kim-Soo, now promoted to admiral, stood on the bridge of a new ship months later. This ship was built to replace the ones lost in the war. On the wall was a list of names all the humans who had died fighting for their freedom. Kim-Soo was traveling to meet with alien ambassadors, wanted to be friends with humanity. These aliens had learned that humans were not easy to defeat or control. They preferred to work together rather than fight. The ship's computer recorded the final message about the war. We tried to talk peace with them, but they attacked us with weapons. We answered with something they could not understand. We refused to give up being human, no matter how much it cost us. The stars looked different now. They were no longer places where humanity had to hide or serve others. They were places where humans could travel as equals, respected for their courage and determination. The war had ended, but the real victory was just beginning.